Alright guys, welcome into round 5 recap from the 2014 Millionaire Open. I was coming off of 2 straight draws in rounds 3 and 4 to kind of stabilize after losing round 2. So I was prepared with another very strong 1900 plus player. Had the black pieces. My opponent played pawn to e4. Pawn to e4, and I played d5. Obviously, we've already seen this one time during the tournament. The center counter, or the Scandi, as some call it. White's best move is to take. And then I've mentioned there's a couple different good options here. Knight f6 is very strong, and queen d5 is very, very playable as well if you know what you're doing. I opted for knight f6 and pawn c4. So White again is basically saying that he's going to try to hold on to this pawn, or at least that's what he's signifying with this move pawn to c4. But after pawn to c6, if White gets greedy and he takes on c6, then there's knight c6. And even though Black is down a pawn, both of his knights are out. They're very active. They're actually controlling every single central square. My queen has some nice central control as well. And White would like to play a move like pawn to d4. But again, that just gives back the pawn for no reason. And if he can't go pawn to d4, that means he's going to have to play a move like pawn to d3. And yes, even though he is up a pawn, Black is going to have a very, very pleasant position after e5. Good piece development. This bishop by White, it's not really clear what it's doing at this point. And Black's just going to bring his bishops out. Bishop c5, bishop f5, maybe queen d7, rook d8. Honestly, he may get his pawn back in no time at all with a better position. So usually what a lot of people will opt for after I play c6, especially stronger players, will just play d4. And now we've transposed the position back to a pawn of attack. This is a position you could get if I had played the Caro-Kann early in the game. e4, c6, d4, d5. E takes d5, pawn takes d5, and c4. So it would have been the same opening line. And I played e6. I just want to solidify my pawn on d5. And he played bishop g5. So if we were to talk about this position from a strategical perspective at this point, the pluses and minuses for each side would be this. A potential downside to White's position is this isolated d-pawn that might be a target at a later point. So one of the ideas I would want to have against, if I want to try to take advantage of this d-pawn, is to try to trade off a bunch of material. And then just take it straight into an endgame where I can hopefully take advantage of this isolated d-pawn. My opponent, on the other hand, he wants to avoid a lot of exchanges, and he wants to build up an attack. So very, very double-edged for both sides, these isolated pawn positions. That's the basic objective. And here I played bishop e7, just breaking the spin on my knight. My opponent played knight f3, and I played knight b d7, which is not the best decision, and my opponent played a very, very strong move here, which is pawn c5. So he is gaining space on the queen side. I do not want to allow him to play like b4, a4. It would get highly unpleasant for me. You guys know, you may notice his c5 move clamps down on some of the squares some of my pieces could go to. So here I have to be very, very careful. I have to make a good decision, which I did, and I played knight e4. So knight e4 right away. We are bringing our knight, our bishop, and our queen are ganging up on this bishop. So we have 3 attackers on this bishop, and he has 1 defender. So forcing White to make a decision. Is he going to take on e4, or is he going to take on e7? Those are really the only 2 moves. He played knight e4. And I play DE4. And now if he moves the knight, the bishop falls. So his move again is forced. Bishop E7, hitting my queen. Queen E7. And then knight D2. And now at this point, I do have a slightly more pleasant position as black after the move pawn to E5. The idea is we're putting pressure on this D pawn. And if he takes, then he's weakening both the E and the C5 pawns. In fact, these pawns are so weak that the best move is just a castle in this position. They're not going anywhere. We're going to be able to take them at a later point. We don't need to rush it. So that tells you how strong the move pawn E5 is. But black has to make white has to make a decision here because his center is about to fall apart. If he allows ED4, then C5's going to be undefended, and black's going to have a big advantage here. So knight C4 was played, and I castled. So just keeping the tension here in the center of the board, getting my king to safety, very important aspect of playing chess, especially at a higher level. And white needs to try to get his king to safety as well, but he decided to play B4. So on one perspective, it makes sense because he's gaining space on the queen side. He's supporting this strong C5 pawn. But on the other hand, he's not really in a position to be able to safely start pushing these queen side pawns forward. I took on D4, which again is an okay move. It's not the best move. Right away, what I should have done is continue to put the pressure on these pawns with B6. And after DE5, don't take back on E5 with the knight, but take the C pawn. The C pawn, because the E pawn's not going anywhere. We're always going to have our knight and our queen gaining up here. And black has a very pleasant position, and white has to be very careful, otherwise he may not survive this game for long with his king in the center of the board. But I don't remember if I looked at B6 again. It was 2014. It was a long time ago. I took on D4. That's fine. And then I played the move Queen G5. I wanted to just take control of some of these squares over here on the king side, since that's where my opponent is going to castle. Computer says blunder. I don't. It's not a blunder. It doesn't lose any material or anything. My opponent played Rook D1. I played Knight F6. And this is very pleasant for me. White has a little bit of an edge, but it's not a big deal. I just want to play Bishop E6 or Bishop F5 or Bishop G4. Bring the rooks into the action. And again, white still isn't castled. Part of his issue is that the bishop is defending the G2 pawn. So if he moves his bishop, the queen comes into G2, and then castling isn't going to happen. So my opponent played H4, logical, attacking my queen. I played Queen G6. He played Knight E5, attacking my queen. I played Queen F5. And he played Bishop C4. Now that he got my queen away from attacking the G2 pawn, he can bring out his light squared bishop. And I played Bishop E6. Right away, blocking his bishop off from attacking F7 and just putting some pressure on his bishop. And my opponent played A4. Continuing to not move towards castling, in general, in probably 90-95% of the games that are played, you want to castle within the first 10 moves. It's not that A4 is a losing move for my opponent. It's just, it would be a lot better to get your king to safety at this point. A4 is always going to be there. I took on C4, and then I played Queen G4. So again, I am saying that castle, if you castle, I will take on H4 now. I'm also threatening the G2 pawn. So my opponent has to make a decision, and he played G3, a decision I was very, very happy to see, because now his whole king side is going to be open for my pieces, possibly. So I jumped into F3 right away. I hit his rook. And now it's basically castle or never. He cannot defend this rook without castling. And if he moves the rook, he won't be able to castle. So he castles. And now I do have to be careful, and I underestimated these queenside pawns. And this is what is eventually going to cost me the game, is these pawns on the queenside being so advanced. I was kind of had tunnel vision, and I was playing just for the attack here with queen g4. I was thinking maybe of going queen h3 and knight g4, just trying to checkmate him on h2. Rook fe1, queen h3, and now knight e3, a very, very strong move. So his knight is defending g2, and on knight g4 he may just trade knights. And I have to respect the idea of white playing b5 and c6 and creating just a monster pass pawn that I'll have to spend the rest of the game defending against. I defended the e-pawn. My opponent played b5, rook a to c8, and a5. And really in here is the last possible moment where I can stop these queenside pawns before they become too much of an issue. I played h5, but that was not the best move because it kind of weakens control over my g5 square. So h6 was a better move. Rook d2. So white is probably thinking he's going to swing his rooks to maybe b2, c1, play c6, and create a pass pawn. That's eventually going to pin down my pieces to have to stop it, and then I'm just eventually going to lose that position. If I can't come up with anything active, then I'm just going to lose. I played rook e6. I thought this was active because it helps guard the c6 square. Oh, and opens up the possibility that I can move my knight somewhere and maybe swing my rook over to the king side to attack. But rook c2 and a6, and now white is just completely winning and wrapped this game up very nicely. He found pawn c6, which is the best move. I took on c6, and now you can win a couple different ways as white. You can play b6 and just say, it's okay that I'm down a pawn. This b pawn is going to carry the day. Or you can play b takes a6, which is also winning. My opponent played b takes a6, and I played knight g4. Again, I don't know why I was so focused on trying to attack on the side of the board where I really don't have a lot of possibilities. Obviously, my opponent needs to stop queen h2 and queen f2, but he could just take my knight. And now I don't really have anything over there to attack with. And white is just going to push his pawn to a7. Once I go like rook a8, he's going to go rook b2, rook b8, and the game's going to be over. I have no attack anymore. So rook c5, very, very strong move. My opponent wants to play rook g5, attack my queen, and if my queen moves, he's going to mate me on g7. So I have big issues at this point. I played f5. I'm pretty sure, looking back on the game, thinking about it now, I knew at this point I was lost with proper play. And again, I decided to just try to create confusion. The other option, obviously, is to resign, but humans are humans, and it's not like I'm playing a grandmaster or somebody who has a title. This guy could still blunder. Queen d7. Queen d7, attacking both of my rooks. I have to defend my rook and save the other one. And now a7. And now no matter what I do, white's just going to win this position. Rook b1, rook b8. Once the rook goes to b8, he's threatening to queen because we're cut off from controlling the a8 square. And a rook on b8 is also going to open up the idea of rook e8, queen e8, king h7, and then he just queens. So at this point, the game is just over. I played f4, probably hoping that I could play f3 and queen h3, maybe have enough time to do that. But my opponent played very well here. Rook g5. He is now threatening mate and my queen. My queen cannot save itself and defend against the mate. So I played rook 6 e7, but this loses material. White just plays queen takes e7, and now when I take the rook on g5, my opponent can just play queen takes rook, king h7, and then just take the queen. Or, yeah. So I just resigned here. This didn't happen. A disappointing game because I found some really good ideas in the opening as black, but just really underestimating the value of those queenside pawns at a later point. Again, he should not have pushed them as quickly as he did in the opening. There were ways I could have played better against that idea with his king in the center of the board, but at a later point you guys can definitely see the strength of those queenside pawns, and I should have been more respectful of this idea, but this was the last game I lost in the event. From this point on, there's only 2 games, and I am actually going to win the next game. So I win the next game, I get to 2 wins, 2 draws, and 2 losses with this next result, and then I drew the last game. So I will be analyzing those for you at a later point. Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed that, and I will see you guys later. Thanks for everything.